let's get into this first news item. We're going to go random down some news items that are in the news. What I mean by in the news, these are newsworthy things that are happening in our world, but you're not going to hear them on the news. You're not going to see them on the news, and quite frankly, not even a lot of YouTube channels are going to even cover this. And there is a media blackout on a lot of this stuff. Because why? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the narrative, y'all, of that everything's on the up and up. Well, everything's not on the up and up. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not a doom and gloomer. I'm not a Debbie Downer. But the truth is, it's not going to get better. It's getting worse. And but for the body of Christ, we have a different perspective on what is coming. This first thing I want to show you tonight, I'm going to shoot you. We're going to watch just a little bit of this video. Apparently, I have read several news items from different websites, verifiable, watched several people talking about this, and this is definitely a media blackout. And this is that cattle is mysteriously disappearing across the country. Now, we have already gone through a time during the pandemic where cattle were being killed and dying of disease and so forth. But I want you to listen to this rancher. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this may be in Texas, not sure. But listen to this guy, and he's just one of many that are talking about what is happening. And how in the world is this pulled off?
The cattle across the country have been mysteriously dying or just flat out disappearing. And I'm not talking about small numbers of cattle. I'm talking about big numbers of cattle. And I thought this would be an interesting subject to cover since most of us are on a mid-season forced break from Yellowstone. I do watch that show. I think that Tyler does an incredible job writing that show.
Yeah,
if you listen, they're not just drama, they're real. The average person, when you hear the Wild West, really is some of these situations that I'm going to talk about now. But
all right, here we go.
I will say that I think that is a great show. And
okay, come on. We know you
love cattle farm.
We know you love Yellowstone.
Earlier this month, a small cattle farm in Colorado lost 80 head of cattle.
80 head.
80 head. Now, to move 80 head of cattle,
listen to what he's saying.
You would have to bring in a couple semi-trucks to be able to get those cattle out. This guy can see from his window, his kitchen window, his paddocks, okay? 80 head of cattle just went missing one day.
One day?
80 freaking head of cattle.
80
it would take a serious operation to move 80 head of cattle. So he didn't actually call the police right away. He went around and checked everybody else's fields around him. They went out and searched the 80 head of cattle. Now they're all branded. They're branded because it's how you keep track of your cows, especially when you got that many head of cows.
Listen to this right here, this part right here.
You can't find the 80 head of cattle. They just disappeared.
80
and without a trace. This is the weird part. There's no tire marks, nothing. I mean, they've chalked it up.
Now, why is he saying, why is this even a news item? Number one, it's a news item because 80 head of cattle. He said it would take 2 semi-tractor trailers, 2 18-wheelers, and a crew to haul that many cattle out minimum, maybe even 3 semi-trucks to get those out. And they disappeared. So what he's saying is they disappeared without a trace. And he did not see this happen, this owner. This is a known fact. And so the question is, was this a coordinated thing? Because this is happening in Texas, this is happening in Colorado, this is happening in Montana, not just 1 or 2. They're used to seeing 4 or 5 of them disappearing, but they're 60, 70, 80 disappearing. What is happening? Now, of course, this guy goes on to say, is it aliens? You know, remember that guy on Ancient Aliens on the History Channel? He'd always say, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens, you know. so his answer to everything is aliens. So that's another show for another day. But he's wondering. He's like, how does 80 head of cattle disappear? He said there's no train, there's no truck tracks, there's nothing. They just disappeared. So that's one interesting thing that is happening around our country. And I laugh, but it's not funny. It's a very, very serious thing because when you lose that much money, then it affects even more the price of beef. Have you tried to buy beef lately? Have you tried to buy meat lately? Have you tried to buy poultry lately? In the midst of cattle now mysteriously disappearing, we've got the so-called bird flu that's killing millions, hundreds of thousands of chickens and turkeys and all that around the world. I mean, my God, what are we going to do without chicken? I mean, we can't live without chicken, especially preachers. Preachers love chicken, y'all. I can't make it without chicken now. All right, but look, I just want to point that out, that this is happening. Have you heard about that on your news? This is not just this one guy. It's on multiple news sites that are, I would call them out of the norm news sites that would cover things that the mainstream media is not covering. And here's another thing that they're definitely not covering, and that is what is going on in our school systems. Oregon is one of many, but just this week, Oregon advises their school system. I want parents, grandparents, I want you to listen to this. This happened this week, but look, this is just one article that I pulled out. This is happening all over the country and in school systems everywhere. Oregon's Education Board advises schools to keep students' gender identity hidden from families, hidden from their mother and father. They have recommended school authorities to keep students' self-proclaimed gender identities a secret from parents for maintaining their confidentiality. The Department of Education, Oregon Department of Education, has released a document advising schools on how to support gender-expansive students, including keeping their so-called gender identities a secret from family members. If a student discloses their gender-expansive identity to school staff, the guidance asks staff members to respect the child's confidentiality needs. Respect the child's confidentiality needs. Students who do not publicly assert their gender identity might have concerns about their families and community members finding out, the new guidance states. Quote, parent and family support is the goal when supporting gender-expansive students, but may not be possible in all situations. May not be possible in all situations. The updated guidance clarifies new and evolving laws and policies and how to address the needs of gender-expansive students and the school districts that serve them. Oh, yeah, listen. Speaking to Fox News, spokesman confirmed that when students claim that notifying their parents about their gender-expansive identity might be a safety concern, the department encourages schools to, quote, prioritize the student's safety within all school environments. And then it goes on to discuss this term that you're hearing more and more about, gender-affirming care. These are medical services like puberty blockers, gender-affirming surgeries, hormone therapy are likely to occur within a school-based health center, the document noted. Ladies and gentlemen, are you okay with this? Are you okay with this? Are you okay with somebody's child getting a little confused, watching a TikTok video, or maybe having some feelings that they don't understand? And I'm not legitimately saying that maybe they're attracted to the same sex or something like that. That's been going on for generations and generations. Well, that's one thing. That's a doctrinal thing there as well that the Word of God addresses. But now we have a world that says, well, wait a minute, maybe you're not just that. Maybe you're just in the wrong body. But listen, we want to protect you. Don't go home and tell your mom and daddy. You listen, this is what's happening in some school systems. This is not hype, and this is not conspiracy theory. This is happening. Bring you another set of clothing. Bring you a wig, or bring your makeup, or bring whatever you need to be the other person that you believe you are. And our teachers are keeping them in locked closets, and they're letting schools, I'm talking about elementary and middle school kids, and certainly high school kids, are coming to school. They're getting on the bus, or they're getting in the car, they're leaving their house dressed a certain way to satisfy mom and daddy. And when they get to the school, these teachers are unlocking these cabinets, allowing them to go in and change, and then before they come into class, become another gender. I'm not okay with this. This is not hate speech. This is not, I don't hate anybody. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not saying that people are not legitimately going through something, that they're not legitimately confused. But the reality is this. I'm telling you, it started years ago. Y'all remember this? It takes a village. It takes a village. That was the first drip. The next drip came out not long ago, it was a few years ago, that you started seeing on the news. Some of these teachers will start saying, hey, listen, your children are not just your children. They're our our children too. So when they, we spend more time with them than you do. So you're going to have to let us parent them as well. We think of them as our children. I get that you do have more time with my child and my grandchildren than I may have working a job or something like this. But you, and I want somebody to help me in the comment section if you agree with me, just put some hands up, some fist bumps or something. Make sure you hit that like button down there and subscribe if you hadn't done it. But make sure you let me know that you agree with me. If you disagree with me, then let me know that too. It's okay. But the reality is this. Guess what, teacher? Guess what, principal? You ain't their daddy. You ain't their mama. You ain't their daddy. You ain't their mama. And you don't have that right. You don't have that right. This is not a situation where a child is trying to have the safety of a teacher because they've been beat at home, that there's an abusive situation at home, and they're trying to help that child get help there. That's a different thing. This is a child that's a boy saying, I'm a girl, and a teacher saying, bring your wig and bring your dress, and don't tell your mom and daddy, and I'll let you be a girl in class. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't be okay with that, because if you think that's as far as they're going to go, let me tell you, it is never enough for the devil, and it is never enough for the culture of the devil. That it is a drip, 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 and I'm telling you, eventually, if you don't fix that kitchen sink drip, it will start pouring, and then one day that thing's going to blow up, and that washer's going to let go, and you're going to flood your kitchen, and you're going to have a mess on your hands. And that's the world that we live in right now. And I'm telling you, if we don't rise up, we don't talk about it on shows like this, most people don't even know this is going on. They don't even know this is going on. All right, so a lot of news to cover tonight, and that's happening in Oregon, but that's happening all over the country. What else is happening? This is a big one, y'all. This is a big one that they are not talking about. There is a media blackout on these attacks. We have covered them on the Big Picture Live here. There has been attacks in North Carolina. There has been multiple attacks on the power grid in North Carolina. There have been attacks in Texas. There have been attacks in, I believe it was Kansas. Can't remember exactly where. But there are so many out there that's not even being reported. Multiple states throughout the United States, there are multiple different attacks. These are terrorist attacks against our power grid to try to further unstable our country, make our country not stable. And because, you knock the power out, it begins to snowball down through many other things. Well, this is the latest one that just happened yesterday, I believe it was. This is dated January 9th today, but I believe this happened yesterday. Now, I want you to notice something. Isn't it interesting that this is the least talked about of all of them? Why? Because he's of Iranian descent. Come on, let's think about it. If this was an open, if he spray painted something about Jesus on the side of the power plant, don't you know it'd be all over the news? Don't you know it'd be the headline? Radical Christian terrorist blows up Las Vegas solar plant. But quite frankly, there's only a couple of sites that I even found that's even covering this. But let's look at this. Media blackout. Iranian Mohammed Mesmerian, I can't say his name, is charged with terrorism after attacking a Las Vegas solar energy plant. This is him on the camera. Mohammed stated, watch this, that he burned the vehicle at a Tesla solar plant and did it for the future. He is trying to help the future. I don't know what that means. An Iranian man faces terror-related charges after ramming his car through a gate at a solar plant outside Las Vegas and then setting his car on fire, disabling the facility. It goes on to say that he sat in a chair and watched it burn. Around 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, Las Vegas Metro Police responded to a solar plant on the Speedway. Employees at the plant said they found a car smoldering in a generator pit. The solar array facility goes on to so it provides energy to the MGM properties, but is run by a company called Envergy. The driver, later identified as Mohammed Mesmerian. You see the picture of his car down inside the pit on fire. He says that he drove through the fence Tuesday afternoon after employees had left for the day. It was not until midnight Wednesday when video reportedly showed the car on fire. And then it goes on to say that he watch this, said that Mohammed reportedly watched the car burn sitting in a chair for about 15 minutes before he walked off. And then, of course, there's the car after it had been extinguished. And it knocked out power to many, and there's no telling how long it is going to take to repair. It says an employee at the plant said the fire caused major damage, estimating it would, oh my goodness, I forgot this part, estimating it would take 2 years to receive replacement parts. You hearing me? 2 years to receive replacement parts. In addition, the damaged unit remained shut down due to the fire, and the plant was not producing electricity. Did you hear about that on your news? Did you hear about it on Fox News? Did you hear about that on CNN? Did you hear about that anywhere on YouTube? Is anybody talking about the assault against the power grid of our country? No, they're not. Why? Because they want to keep you distracted. They want to keep you distracted. I'm going to tell you another reason they want to keep you distracted. Now, these are a couple of news items that I was covering, but now I'm going to get into really what I want to talk about tonight. I want you to know about a couple of things. I always try to give you a couple of fringe things or whatever that you're not going to hear on the news. But now I want to just sort of do a deep dive here into what's going on with these world organizations. I want you to see this. This came out this morning. This is a report here. Bulletin, flash, urgent. The WHO, if you know what the WHO is, that's the World Health Organization. Sorry, I hadn't got that up on the screen. There we go. WHO meeting in secret. The WHO meeting in secret to convert themselves to enforceable law under existing treaties. Forced, there it is on the word, shots, medicine, whatever you want to call it. I don't think it is that, but I'm trying to code word it. Forced medicine, and then outlawing pew, pew, pew guns. I think I can say that one. As a public health issue. Notice this. To outlaw the Second Amendment because of public and call it a public health issue. Let's read the bulletin here. The International Health Regulations Review Committee of the World Health Organization, which, by the way, did you know where the World Health Organization is based? In Geneva, Switzerland. Same country as the World Trade Organization, same country as Davos, Switzerland, World Economic Forum, and same country as CERN, if you know anything about CERN. The International Health Regulation Review Committee is planning to meet in secret, watch this, from Monday, January 9th, that's today, through February 13th, Friday, January 13th. We'll be working to finalize what is now a 46-page document that includes proposed amendments to the International Health Regulations. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to try to read some of it. You need to hear this. The proposed amendments would be to change the overall nature of the World Health Organization from an advisory organization that merely makes recommendations to a governing body whose proclamations would be legally binding. Now, you remember what came down, everything that we just went through in the last 2.5 years were at the recommendation of the WHO and the CDC. And they were only recommendations. But the governments would then make the decisions for the mandates and so forth. And they would say, well, we're just following the guidelines of the WHO and the CDC. Well, they're wanting it to be more enforceable. They're wanting to be legally binding. Greatly expand the scope of international health regulations to include scenarios that merely have a potential to impact public health. That's the key. That's the big part right there. To expand the health regulations to scenarios that merely have a potential to impact public health. Automatically, of course, my mind goes to climate change because they're going to say, we know that climate change is coming and it's going to get worse, so therefore it's going to be a public impact, so we need to enforce some laws and make them laws. Seek to remove respect for dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms of people. Give the Director General of the WHO control of the means of production through an allocation plan for health products to require developed states to supply you know what? We just went through response products as directed. By the way, that's, you're going to listen to the big picture. It's good to probably watch the big picture because there's words that I'm not going to say. I'm just going to let you read them off the screen. And then here's the big ones. Give the WHO the authority to require medical examinations, proof of prophylaxis. I can't ever say that word. proof of vaccine. Oh man, I said it. And to implement contact tracing, quarantine, and treatment. Do you understand? Contact tracing is something that you would put it on your phone, and then you would get a notification if you are around someone who has been exposed to it, has been diagnosed of something. I'm going to let you read some of this that's on the screen, and some of this stuff I need to be careful what I'm saying here because I want to stay on the air. Institute a system of global health certificates in digital or paper format, including test certificates, bump certificates, prophylaxis certificates, recovery certificates, passenger locator forms, and traveler health, blah, 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 blah. And then the last thing is, watch this, greatly expand the World Health Organization's capacity to censor what they consider to be misinformation or disinformation. Oh, my goodness. Do you understand how huge this is? To expand the World Health Organization's capacity to censor what they consider to be misinformation or disinformation. This is going on in meetings in Geneva, Switzerland, as I speak. It began today and it's going through Friday. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that is by any chance has anything to do with that is happening this week when 6 days, 10 hours, 31 minutes, and 7 seconds from this moment live begins on the other side of Switzerland? Geneva's on the west side, and Davos, Switzerland is on the east side of the same little country. You go to worldeconomicforum.org. This is their main website. The countdown is on. The annual Davos meeting of World Economic Forum is happening on January 16th through the 20th. Isn't it amazing that the secret meetings from the World Health Organization that we just told you about ends on January 16th? So they can do all that they're going to do, get in their little electric cars or whatever, and shoot over to the other side of Switzerland and go to Davos and go to the World Economic Forum annual meeting. Let me tell you something, y'all. I talk a lot about the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and all that they're doing on this program because for many of you, I'm the only one you're hearing talk about it. You didn't even know it existed, some of y'all, until I started talking about it. And some of you have heard of it but didn't know what it was. So let's look at it, y'all. Are y'all still with me? If you're still with me, give me some hands up. Come on. Fist bump me. Somebody hit that thumbs up. If you hadn't already hit that thumbs up button, that like button, hit that like button. Now I like it. Some of y'all might get confused when I say that. Some of y'all, all of a sudden, I'll start seeing thumbs up emojis. That's great. I want to see that. But I'm talking about hitting that thumbs up like button underneath the screen here, underneath the video. So hit that like button. That's one of the best things you can do for us. Now let's look at the agenda that's coming up this year for the World Economic Forum that's going to begin 7 days from today. So the next week, next Monday night when we're on here, we will be covering not just that, but we will be covering whatever we can find out coming out of the World Economic Forum. Some of the things we're going to look at, but I want you to notice the pattern here. I want to show you, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here because there's a lot of reading. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to show you the bullet titles of what they're going to look at. Addressing the current energy and food crisis, okay? You see that? But here's the repeated pattern that you'll see in every one of them. In the context of a new system. Addressing the current, this is next week's agenda from Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. Addressing the current energy and food crisis in the context of a new system. Number 2, addressing the current high inflation, low growth, high debt economy. Ding, 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 ding. In the context of a new system for investment, trade, and infrastructure. Number 3, addressing the current industry headwinds in the context of a new system. of harnessing frontier technologies for private sectors, addressing the current social vulnerabilities in the context of a new system for work, skills, care, addressing the current geopolitical risks in the context of a new system of dialogue and cooperation in a multipolar world. Do you see the pattern? Every one of the things they are addressing is in the context of a new system. Whose system? Whose system is it in the context of? It's in the context of the will of Klaus Schwab, the will of the World Economic Forum. They are the creator of the narrative that every nation is saying now. They are the first ones that brought the narrative for climate change, the first one that brought the narrative for gender, the first one that declared the narrative for sexual preference, first one that declared the narrative that capitalism is dead. On and on and on. I'm about to show you some stuff right here, y'all, that you need to know about this group. The World Economic Forum is not a conspiracy theory. This is a fact. You may have asked the question the way I've asked the question, and I've been delving into this and studying this. What is the origin of the World Economic Forum? How did Klaus Schwab come into becoming the most powerful man, in my opinion, in the world? I think he's more powerful than every president. He's more powerful than every prime minister. He is more powerful than anybody in the world. How did this one man who's unelected, who has, but yet he has the voice to bring guidance, if you will, and even, quite frankly, mandates to nations around the world. Well, let's watch this clip here from someone that knows exactly how Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum came into existence.
The deep state decided in the 1960s or so.
By the way, let me set this up. This gentleman here worked at Deutsche Bank. I am horrible at words. Deutsche Bank, whatever, in Germany. He was there for many, many years, connected with many people who were a part of the foundation of the World Economic Forum. Everything that he is saying is completely verifiable. I have verified it.
When the author of the Great Reset, Klaus Schwab, spent some time at the university at Harvard. Klaus
Schwab was educated at Harvard. Klaus Schwab's father was a Nazi in Germany. And when Klaus Schwab got to college age, to go to college, his Nazi father said, I want you to have the best education for what you're going to do with your life. So he sent him to Harvard in the United States. Klaus Schwab was educated in Harvard.
He was introduced to Henry Kissinger, and he in turn introduced Klaus Schwab to a CIA-funded program whose goal it was to change American foreign policy towards Europe.
All right, so, there again, this part right here I can't 100% verify, but I can verify that Klaus Schwab was at Harvard and that they had a great connection with Henry Kissinger. And the statement is that Henry Kissinger already had a young leaders program where he was training global leaders in America to carry the narrative there at Harvard. But they wanted, the rumor is, and allegedly, I'll say that to cover myself, allegedly, that the CIA wanted a greater involvement in Europe. So there was this introduction that was made between Klaus Schwab and Henry Kissinger, and then after that, this.
That's why they had him, Klaus Schwab, set up the World Economic Forum. And 20 years later, in 1971, he started the Young Global Leaders Program.
All right, now listen, this is huge. He started something, and it's still into existence, the Young Global Leaders Program. This is the seedbed. And I want you to listen to two of the first graduates of this program that were trained, mentored by Klaus Schwab in the original class, one of the first classes of the Young Global Leaders Program.
This is literally a politician production facility. Among the first two to graduate from this program is Angela Merkel, former Chancellor of Germany, and Bill.
Anybody want to guess? Anybody want to guess? So first he said Angela Merkel, who of course was very much in favor of the New World Order. Her time there at Germany, she was always in favor of the New World Order. Anybody want to guess? Anybody want to guess in the comment section who the other one that graduated alongside Merkel? Here it is.
Gates. And in the meantime, pretty much everyone. And Bill Gates.
Bill Gates.
And in the meantime,
Bill Gates. Bill Gates, who still tries to make everybody think that he's just the founder of Microsoft. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Gates had a lot more stuff going on. Bill Gates' father was very much into eugenics. There's all kinds of stuff about Bill Gates. And of course, now Bill Gates is all about the World Economic Forum. He's all about the agenda of the narrative of the World Economic Forum. And of course, he's all about the medicine, y'all. He was one of the very first graduates. And if you will, in the church world, we call it spiritual sons and daughters. A son and a daughter, Merkel, lady, prime minister from Germany, and Bill Gates.
Much everyone who runs any country in Europe, but also beyond Europe, is a product of this Young Global Leaders Program. Mm-hmm. Emmanuel Macron, he's the French president. Justin Trudeau.
So the president of France, all right, we've already heard this. The president or prime minister of Germany, the president of France, current president of France, and the current prime minister of Canada.
The prime minister or premier prime minister, I think they call him in Canada. Yeah. There's nothing secret about it. It's all out in the open because Klaus Schwab runs around and boasts that he and his World Economic Forum have infiltrated half the Canadian Parliament.
One of the things that Klaus Schwab says at one of the World Economic Forums not long ago, he said, one of my greatest things that I'm proud of is how we have been able to integrate the nations and place our graduates of our Young Global Leaders program in as presidents and prime ministers of some of the greatest countries in the world. He goes on to say about Canada that 50% of the cabinet of Justin Trudeau in Canada are graduates of Klaus Schwab's Young Global Leaders program. 50%, half of a nation's entire cabinet were trained by Klaus Schwab.
Since the start of the Young Global Leaders program, over the last 30 years, they've had lots of time to infiltrate pretty much every layer of society, especially in Europe, because that's what this program was designed for. Europe seems to be like the testing ground. The lab for the rest of the world, because they want to. The ultimate goal. I don't think I'm telling you any secrets here. The ultimate
goal. What is the ultimate goal of the agenda?
Goal of this Mr. Global or the deep state is to have full control over the people and to reduce the population.
Full control and to reduce the population. Full control and to reduce the population. Wow. Now, are you ready? First of all, Merkel from Germany, Macron from France, Trudeau from Canada, leaders of major countries, trained, mentored, narrative placed inside of their minds, were running countries. There are people in our government, United States of America, that are in our current president's cabinet. Some of the highest up people were graduates. Of course, our president and even the former presidents, President Trump, President Obama, President Bush, all the way back, have all attended Davos as well. But I want to show you something. There's another person that you didn't hear, but is absolutely 100% verified, one of the most famous graduates of Klaus Schwab's Young Global Leaders. And guess what his name is? Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin also graduated from Young Leaders, Global Members, and alumni. Guess who else? Zelensky. Go figure. And I'll show you something else about Zelensky in just a minute. So Young Global Leaders member and alumni, this is a portion of of what's on here. Members and alumni, notable members of the alumni global leaders include some of these. What's this? Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. I'm just going to go down and you can read them. I won't say a lot of their names. I'll just say what countries they are. We have the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada. There's Canada again. Canada. You see all these in Canada. That's what I was talking about. All these people in Canada. Emmanuel Macron, President of France. Prime Minister of New Zealand. Prime Minister of Belgium. Prime Minister of Finland. President of Costa Rica. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Germany. Minister of Health, Germany. Former Chancellor of Austria. Minister of Finance in Finland, Minister of Digital Transformation, Slovenia, Minister of Public Sector, Transformation, blah, blah, Denmark. We've got Greece. We've got the Netherlands. We've got the Prime Minister of the nation of Georgia, Pete Buttigieg. You ever heard of him? Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, the United States of America, ran for president, who's now the Secretary of Transportation in America, Pete Buttigieg. He is a graduate as well. Minister of France, Minister of Knesset in the nation of Israel, Argentina, Ghana, Ireland. Let's go on. People's Republic of China, the Minister of Science and Technology, the People's Republic of China, and the Crown Prince of Norway. Look at some of the people from the business world. Founder of Wikipedia, the co-founder of Google, the other co-founder of Google, Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, founder of Alibaba, American financier Leo Tillman, president of the Rockefeller Foundation. Here's some people in media, just a few. Anderson Cooper, the broadcaster on CNN. Fasi Zaka, I don't know who that is. We see some others there. Leonardo DiCaprio, he's at every one of them. He's telling the whole world about climate change, everywhere about climate change, and yet he's flying in every year in his beautiful $100 million Learjet. Ashton Kutcher, the actor, Charlize Theron. Some of these names I don't know who they are, but you see that goes on and on and on and on and on. These are the young leaders, global leaders that were trained, mentored before the world even knew who they were from Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders Program. Elon Musk wasn't on that list, but it is alleged that he was also a graduate as well. This is mind-boggling. Do you understand now why I say this man is the most powerful man in the world? Because it's one thing for you to have influence on nations, but it's another thing when your disciples that you personally mentored and trained with your narrative and your belief system are the most powerful people in those countries, whether they be prime ministers, presidents. They all came out of this unelected global entity, phenom, that is mind-boggling to think about in this little country called Switzerland that is literally shaping the world. Well, guess who is the financer and one of the board members that is on the World Economic Forum's board? The president, the CEO of a financial group, the most powerful bank in the world, an investment banker in the world, is called BlackRock. BlackRock is evil. BlackRock is funding an agenda that is evil around this world. They are buying up. BlackRock is literally going into states in our country. I'm sure they're doing it around the world, but I know they're doing it in our country. They're predominantly doing it in Florida and different places where they're going in as a company and buying up entire subdivisions. Billions of dollars. They're buying every house. So in some cases, from what I've read, giving above asking price, buying out, making offers that cannot be refused, and buying up entire neighborhoods, and then turning right around and renting them. Remember what Klaus Schwab said? By 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy about it. You'll rent everything. BlackRock is on the forefront of all of the agenda of the Global World Economic Forum, and Larry Fink, the president and the CEO of BlackRock is on the board of the World Economic Forum. When you look at the pictures of the World Economic Forum's meeting of their board members, Klaus Schwab is not even sitting in the center of the table. He's sitting to the left or to the right of Larry Fink. Who is Larry Fink? You need to look him up. He is the orchestrator that is funding the agenda of the World Economic Forum. Look at this. This happened just a couple of weeks ago. Zelensky, you know that name? Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, that just came to our country, that has spoken to many different countries and entities via video. The whole world have embraced Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. They should embrace the Ukrainian people, don't get me wrong. But the Ukrainian government, it's not what they're pretending to be. They are corrupt. But look what happened. This is absolutely a fact. Zelensky announces that Ukraine has teamed or partnered with Larry Fink, who might just be as equally as powerful as Klaus Schwab. I don't think he is as powerful, but when you really talk about money, if money is really powerful, maybe he is more powerful than Klaus Schwab because he's the one that holds the purse strings to fund the agenda of Klaus Schwab. Larry Fink and BlackRock to rebuild Ukraine. Plans to formally join the World Economic Forum next year. Zelensky thanked Larry Fink for the work of the professional team that BlackRock has allocated to advise on structuring the reconstruction projects. Yesterday, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky held a video conference with Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, managing over a whopping $10 trillion worth in assets alone, announced that they will be working to rebuild Ukraine together. Zelensky made the announcement on his official presidential website. Quote, in accordance with the preliminary agreements struck earlier this year between the head of state and Larry Fink, the BlackRock team has been working for several months on a project to advise the Ukrainian government on how to structure the country's reconstruction funds. Vladimir Zelensky and Larry Fink agreed to focus in the near term on coordinating the efforts of all potential investors and participants in the reconstruction of our country, channeling investment into the most relevant and impactful sectors of the Ukrainian economy. During the conversation, it was emphasized that certain BlackRock leaders plan to visit Ukraine in the new year. The president thanked Larry Fink for the work of the professional team that BlackRock had allocated to advise on structuring the reconstruction projects. There you see Larry Fink on the screen, and you see the president, Zelensky, there. And he goes on to talk about the World Economic Forum as well. And he said they signed a memorandum of understanding, the Ministry of Economy did with BlackRock. And it goes on to say that they've made it, binding and so forth. But I want to get down to this part. And it says that BlackRock is a large partner and contributor of the World Economic Forum and has been quietly buying up entire swaths of neighborhoods and adding them to their ever-widening portfolio. And speaking of the WEF, Zelensky also announced on the 27th that the Ukraine formally will be getting a seat at the table at the World Economic Forum. He did not say if he would attend next year's summit meeting in Davos, but he did say, we are already preparing to participate in the World Economic Forum in Davos. The position and prospects of Ukraine will be presented there. My God, this just gets crazier and crazier and crazier when you think about it. We have in one country, we have Davos, we have the World Economic Forum, we have Klaus Schwab creating the narrative. On the other end of the same country, we have the worldwide global headquarters of the World Health Organization and the World Trade Organization, and one of the national buildings, whatever you call it, structures of the United Nations as well. in Geneva, Switzerland. In fact, 33 major global entities are based in Geneva, Switzerland, which also, I just did a teaching on this on Paul Begley's latest conference that he's going to have called Concerned. And it's about CERN and the World Economic Forum. If you have not gone to paulbegleyprophecy.com, you need to do that and buy that, because I released something on there that I've never said, and I'm not going to say it on here because I want to say it there. Some things that I discovered about CERN. But then you got BlackRock. Then you got the money. Then you've got the biggest diversion that's happening right now in the media is the Ukrainian-Russian war. You have both sides of this war being fought and led by people who are graduates of the same program, Young Global Leaders Program of the World Economic Forum, fighting each other. And in the middle of it all is Klaus Schwab. Then you put on top of that Putin is now rumored to be close to death. He's now rumored to be close to death. That is the rumor. More and more people are confirming that he could be at just days and even weeks away. But he does not want to die. The rumors are that he has Parkinson's and advanced stages of cancer, and that he has publicly said, I will not die losing this war, and that he has said that he is prepared to unleash against Ukraine an attack on the level of that we have not seen since World War II. What does that mean? Does that mean nuclear? What does that mean? He just doesn't want to die and his legacy be that he invaded Ukraine and then he died and he didn't know how it ended. There's no telling what's about to happen. But then you got the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, coordinating with the CEO of BlackRock, who is on the board of the World Economic Forum, that is going to be sitting at the table with Klaus Schwab in 1 week from tonight at the time of this recording, establishing the narrative that the world will talk about when it comes to climate, when it comes to economy, when it comes to business, when it comes to sickness, when it comes to disease. But then when it also comes to the war in Ukraine and other wars and conflicts that are getting ready to spring up, the narrative, ladies and gentlemen, is coming out of Davos. And if you'll remember last week on this program, if you hadn't watched it, go back and watch it. I unleashed to you and remind you about Agenda 2030. Agenda 2030 was approved by the United Nations in 2015, and they have multiple bullet items that they want to see in place by 2030. Well, if you didn't realize you're not good at math, let me help you. That's 7 years away from the time of this recording. And the things that they have on their agenda to get to by 2030 is some pretty radical change. They got some radical stuff that they need to do before we get there. And that's what I'm going to be covering as we go. That's why this program exists. That's why God put a mandate on my life and said, you don't get to retire. You got to get on YouTube. You got to get on Rumble. You got to get on wherever you can get on, and you've got to shout it from the rooftops. You've got to wake up wake up the sleeping giant. You got to wake up the mighty men of God. So it's called Agenda 2030. That's 7 years away. Well, I told my church Sunday that the devil's got an agenda, but so does God. And God's agenda is greater. They may have an agenda for 2030. It might be 7 years of what they think is going to be tormenting, but 7 is the number of the Holy Ghost. 7 is the number of completion. Can I tell you something? They may have Agenda 2030, but how about this agenda? God's got an agenda called Agenda Matthew 28. Grow into all the world and preach the gospel, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever commanded you, and lo, I'll be with you until the ends of the world. How about this agenda? Mark chapter 16, go into all the world and preach the gospel, lay hands upon the sick and watch them recover. In my name cast out devils. Freely you have received, freely give. How about this agenda? Joel chapter 2, that in the last days I'll pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. How about this agenda? How about this one? How about greater is he that's within me and you, if you're a believer, than he that's within the world? So yes, our eyes are open. Yes, we're going to cover things, but we're not here to fearmonger. We're here to just open your eyes, shake you up, wake you up to know how to pray for your family, to know how to provide for your family, to know how to make sure that you've got what your family's going to need when this agenda that they start rolling out comes. else. But the one thing you got to make sure that your family has more than anything, more than stored up food, more than bottles of water in your basement, more than the ability to get around town or whatever that you find, you need to make sure that your family is born again. And if you're not born again, can I tell you something right now? I want to invite you. If you've watched this and this concerns you and you're worried about the future, can I tell you something? That Jesus said this. Jesus said the enemy comes. How about this agenda? John chapter 10 verse 10 tells us the agenda of the enemy. Jesus said this, for this purpose did the devil come, to steal and to kill and to destroy. But how about God's agenda? Jesus said, but I've come that they might have life and to have it more abundantly. Do you know Jesus? Do you know that peace? Do you know that abundant life? Well, the enemy's coming after you, and they're lining up. They're lining up in Davos. They're lining up in Geneva. They're lining up in Washington. They're lining up in London. They're lining up in places all over. Evil is being placed in positions of authority all over this world, and they've got an agenda for you and your family. But let me tell you something. We've not been given a spirit of fear, but to the believers, a power, love, and a sound mind. So if you don't know Jesus Christ as your Savior, how about you do this? Just right now, stop what you're doing and just say, Jesus, forgive me of my sins and come into my heart and save me. I believe that you died on the cross for my sins, and I receive you into my life. In Jesus' name, amen. If you prayed that prayer, hit that live chat, comment down below, and say, I just gave my life to Jesus. I just rededicated my life to Jesus. Whatever it is. If you're watching this on replay, it's just as powerful. Comment down below. I gave my life back to Jesus. I have no fear. No fear. Can somebody just shout no fear in the comment section? No fear. No fear. No fear. No fear. Praise God. Have you had as much fun tonight as I've had tonight? I know I get crazy. I know I get loud on here, y'all. But you know, I'm a preacher. And the preacher has to come out of me sometimes. Because just because I'm on YouTube, I still am who I am. I'm thankful that you're with us tonight. Man, we have had, I think, the best crowd we've ever had on here. Hit that like button if you hadn't already done that. If you want to join and become a partner tonight, if you saw something tonight, you said, I want to be a part of that. Click that join button. It's $5 a month, and you're blessing the ministry. We appreciate it. Subscribe if you hadn't already done it, and share. And remember, we're also on Rumble. And in the coming weeks, we're going to do some things on Rumble that we're not doing here. So if you hadn't subscribed on Rumble, do that now. Go to Rumble, search for my name, and you'll find me. All right. Love you guys. Don't forget. Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Bible study, Central Time. I'll see you there. And I appreciate you one more time because I want to remind you, and if you hadn't figured it out by now, I don't know what's wrong with you. I mean, we ain't woke, but we certainly are awake. See you next time on The Big Picture. Love ya. God bless. See you next time.